Hello, everybody. It's James here once again, WSI, and this is the second of two parts with my chat with Adrian Street and Miss Linda. On the first episode, we were talking about everything from all British wrestling. Began with the beginnings, with the roots from the coal mines to the ring, and then it ended with Jimmy Savile, as it always was going to. In this one, we're going to focus more on American wrestling. But before we do, Adrian, is it fair to say that wrestling was sort of on a downturn around 1979, 1980 when you decided to go to North America? Or,
Yeah,
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 tell me why you think that was.
yeah. The thing is, Joint Promotion sold out the Hearst Park Syndicate, and they put Max Crabtree. They used him as like the promoter to take, to take the and Max was a really good promoter on a smaller scale. He was like a big fish in a little pond, but when they give him the power over Joint Promotions, it absolutely went to his head, and he ended up bringing his brother back into the business for a start. Now I was on a show many years before for the Independents when Shirley Crabtree had his last contest, and the reason he did is because Bert Azarati, who was an old man by then, came. We were all on the same show in Caledonian Baths in London, and Bert came down and challenged Shirley Crabtree to a match. Shirley was terrified. He had good reason to be, mind you, because Bert Azarati was something else. He would really hurt you. But anyway, he packed up wrestling then. He didn't wrestle for 10 years. His other brother, Brian, got hurt on the same card. And he said he'd given up, he'd never wrestle again. And he didn't, he became a referee. He was a good referee, actually. Not a nice person, but a good referee. Um, anyway, all these years later, Max brought Shirley out, called him Big Daddy. And he generally made the business really bad. He replaced good wrestlers with bad actors. And it turned into a farce. Now, I was always really proud to be a professional wrestler. When he started using people like Giant Haystacks, Big Daddy, and a few others, I found it being, I was actually embarrassed to be a professional wrestler in this country. And I said to Linda, we can't stay here anymore. You know, I mean, something that a wrestler was something I always wanted to be from the time I was a child. I did it, and I got to be a top name in the business. Now, all of a sudden, the business was turning into something that I was ashamed to be associated with. So I said, that's what I said to Linda, come on. I said, we're going to leave and go across to the States. I started off in Canada, actually. But we ended up in the States. Now, the thing is, when I wanted to be a pro wrestler, first of all, in London, in England, everybody said to me, you're too young and you're too small. I was 40 years of age the time I actually, no, almost 40 years of age, the time I actually left this country. Now everybody's saying to me, you can't go to American wrestle, it's a land of giants. They're bloody enormous out there. You know, not only that, you're nearly 40 years of age. Don't you think about the time you retired, never mind about going off and starting a new career out there. You know, you're too young and you're too small. I mean, you're too old and you're too small to wrestle in the States. Well, we went out there, cut a long story short. They were big. They were giants. They were enormous. Um, what I did, that's when I started putting my hair up and putting feathers in there, in my hair, to cosmetically make myself look a little bit taller. I put like about 3 inches on my shoes because I'd end up, I mean, when I did that, I was almost looking, I was, I could almost look at their eyes before I was looking at their nose. Now, a big guy come up to me and everything like that in your dressing room, look down at me and everything like that. I think we're wrestling each other tonight. I say, yeah, I believe we are. How can a big guy like me lose to a little guy like you? Don't worry about it, mate. When we get in there, I'll show you. And I did. I tell you what, the big guy showed me a big guy attitude. I would destroy him. I turn him inside out. I turn him upside down. I've got a reputation for being a bully. But even when I was in school, I was a bully. You see somebody beating up all the kids, I would actually put myself in harm's way.
Before we go on to when you, because I believe you go to Stampede first. That's where you when you travel over to North America. Before we get to that, I'd like to ask you, in British wrestling, eventually getting thrown off television and decreasing in popularity, who do you think is mostly to blame for the decline in popularity in wrestling? So I've got the WWF, which was starting to show their programming, and it was, light years ahead in terms of production, at least. There was Michael Grade, who became was it ITV director, who put it in a worse time slot. And then there's also guys like Big Daddy, who weren't wrestlers; they were playing wrestler, as you say. Where do you think? What do you think caused the downfall of British wrestling? In what order?
Max Crabtree promoting the wrestlers he promoted. That's what was wrong with it. That was it in a nutshell, really.
Were there any others? Sorry.
I mean, people like Big Daddy, people actually believed him. What he would do, the top heels in Britain, the top bad guys in Britain back then, a lot of them, the people had never seen them getting beat. I mean, a wrestling match or a movie is only as good, is only as hot as its top villain. A movie gets your attention all the time. Like, well, it is a horrible villain. The more horrible he is, the better. And you want to see him getting his comeuppance. But the thing is, when he does get his comeuppance, the movie's over. When a top bad guy in wrestling, that's why Mick McMahon was a matchmaker. So obviously he won all the time because he was a matchmaker. He decided who was going to win, and it'd always be himself. That's how he made himself into a star. And people would say, like, oh, that guy nearly got him. That guy almost got him. He's going to be here at the return match. I'm going to be there for that. He'll get him this time. But of course he wouldn't. It might look like he was going to, but he'd always pull the stops out. When you see him getting beat, story's over. And the thing is, with Max, he got Big Daddy. He had him beating sometimes not one top villain, but two at the same time. And they'd have to run he would blow up. He would get exhausted walking from the dressing room to the ring. He'd push him on his ass. He'd rock himself to sleep trying to get up. He was useless. Absolutely. I can't believe after he died. I can't believe that Max didn't have him stuffed and take him around the arenas and stuff like that. If we could find a way of getting him in the ring, I don't think anybody noticed a difference.
Well, I mean, he did bring something to wrestling. I mean, he brought a lot of kids into wrestling to get them excited. But I mean, you can't do that forever, obviously.
Exactly, you just said it. Initially, everybody thought, oh, I've always wanted to see this guy getting beaten. And Big Daddy did it to him. Then he'd end up doing it to two. In order to have a little bit of action and make the match last a little bit longer, they start giving Big Daddy tag team partners. They were tiny lightweights that didn't stand a chance. So they'd go in the ring and they'd beat the crap out of the little guy who was Big Daddy's tag team partner. And they keep the crowd on the edge of their seats. Oh, he nearly tagged, he didn't get him. Then finally, when he did, he'd step in like the US cavalry. He'd waddle to the middle of the ring and they'd run at him and bounce off his belly and fall down. Eventually, they'd fall down one on top of the other, very convenient, because he'd flop down on top of them. 1, 2, 3, he'd pin two of them at the same time. That is, I'm trying not to swear.
No, you may swear all you like.
That is ridiculous.
Shit. Let's say shit.
Shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll move on then. So you've said that you were unhappy with how British wrestling was going. It would sort of eat itself up in the ensuing decade after you left. First big promotion you were in was Stampede, I believe. So that must mean you have a good Stu Hart story. Did you ever visit the dungeon?
A Stu Hart story?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the dungeon.
Hmm?
The dungeon.
The dungeon. Stu put himself over as a shoot wrestler. He knew some submissions and everything like that. But if he was hung for being a wrestler, he'd die innocent. He had the dungeon where they'd go down there and everything like that. What he would do to get his reputation as a shoot wrestler, he was a very cruel, spiteful man, actually. But what he would do is, like a newcomer, a new guy would go there and want to learn to wrestle. Instead of teaching him, he'd put a lot of the guys on there that were really good shooters and what have you, that could really go, to wrestle with him first. And they would purposely beat the crap out of him. They would run him around until he was exhausted. Then Stu would waddle on when the guy was still on the canvas, put him in a horrible hold, put his full weight of his chest on the guy's chest. So the guy'd be hyperventilating like you wouldn't believe. Then he'd do a thing called mugging. He'd he'd cup his hand over the guy's mouth and pinch his nostril. So the guy was just about passing out. He'd have him screaming. And his kids were sadistic as well. They made a tape of young guys that wanted to learn to be wrestlers screaming for their lives with Stu laying on top of them. He called it mugging. Cupping his hand over their mouth and squeezing their nose.
Mm.
He had one young guy there that was so terrified he actually crapped. all over Stu. And you can hear Stu's voice. You can hear all the other wrestlers laughing. And you can hear Stu's voice saying, this is the way he used to talk. Have a bit of dignity. Have a bit of dignity, he said, and still coming, and still blocking his. No, he was a nasty piece of work.
I would have thought that he would have been a big fan of you because he always loved the tough guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did, but he was very hard to get any more money out of. First of all, he wasn't even paying Linda. That's when she first became my valet. She was never my valet in Britain. That's when she first became my valet, was for Stu. And first of all, he wasn't even paying her. And if she was ringside, I mean, she was in danger. I was in the ring. I'd do something bad. They wanted to take it out on her. And it took me ages to get any money. And he finally started giving her £50 a week or $50 a week. And that's why I left. I got an offer from a German promoter. German promoter came over. They actually thought I was an American, but I was the only one that they saw that they actually wanted out there. Now, Bret Hart wanted to go out there. And Bret said, do you think you can get me in? And I made that a condition. I said, if you want me, now I knew what kind of money I was getting. And first of all, I tried to use that as a bluff. I didn't want to go to Germany. I used that as a bluff and said, hey, listen, if you don't give me a lot more money, I'm going to Germany. And he played my bluff because he didn't think I'd go. But anyway, if I say I'm going to do something,
you'll follow through.
I've got to do it, no matter what it is. So anyway, that is what I did. I made a condition, and it was me that actually got Bret Hart to Germany. Now, another brother, Keith, who I really didn't like, came up to me. He said, they asked me to get Neidhart in as well. I got Jim Neidhart out there. It was down to me that both Neidhart and Bret Hart actually went to Hanover. Then Keith Hart came up and said to me, you got Neidhart and Bret over there. Can you get me in? I said, I could, but I won't. He said, why not? I said, I don't like you. I didn't like him. He's nasty, snotty little thing.
Because you work with Keith, you work with Bret, you work with Bruce, I believe, as well, among the Hart boys. Which of the Harts did you think was most talented? And at the time, who did you think was going to go the furthest?
Bret. That's why I thought he was good, because he had more size. He was the biggest of the Harts, size-wise. And out there, that size does count. Bruce was no big. Bruce wasn't any bigger than me.
I was going to suggest, I don't know this, but because Bruce brought over Dynamite Kid and Davy Boy, was Bruce who made the overture to you to come over to Stampede in the first place?
No, Stu actually asked me to come out in the first place.
Fair enough then.
He called me up and asked me to come out there, and he talked for an hour. And the thing is, most of what it was I believe you. I put the phone down sometimes, and I was, are you still there? Yeah.
So not the best on the telephone. You wrestle in Stampede, obviously Germany and Mexico in the next year or so, and especially in the early years, before one of your most notable runs when you get to Memphis. And I was going to actually ask this, is who is the worst payoff man, Jerry Jarrett or Dale Martin or Max Crabtree or Stu Hart?
Dale Martin's. Yeah, Dale Martin's and Stu Hart.
Did you actually enjoy Memphis? Because Canada's one thing because it's in the Commonwealth and it's got sort of some British tradition still there. But now you're going into the southern American territories with the exotic Adrian character. How did they first react to you?
They couldn't believe it. I mean, when I worked for Jared, first of all, the first match I had was on a TV show, and I was wrestling with
Ira Reese.
Yeah, I was wrestling with a guy called Ira Reese. He was a black wrestler. I'm wrestling away and everything like that. The next thing is I tie him up and I give him a kiss. And I didn't know at the time, but the cameras went out all over the place and all the rest of it. I got out and Jerry said, "Oh my God," he said, "you killed my business." "Oh my God," he said, "Oh, what have you done?" He said, "You kissed a black man on television." He said, "Oh," he said, the switchboard, he said, the switchboard's lit up. Again, calls, like, who's this guy? Like, what, blah, 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 blah. I said, great. I said, great. He said, he said, you killed me. You killed a business. At that time, we used to do a double. We'd wrestle there in the morning on a TV show. Then we'd drive from there, from Memphis up to Nashville, and do a show in the farm center there. Normally, their house was what they'd actually bring in was $2,500 was like their gate. If they had like a big angle going, it could go up to 4. I went up there now for the first time. People had already seen TV that day. There was 8,000 in.
Ooh.
It was actually double their best. The next week it was 12,000, and that's as much as you could get in there. The whole time we were there, it never went less than 10,000.
Dutch Mantel.
The week after we left, it went right back down to where it was before.
Dutch Mantel told me last week.
That is why Jerry would always try to bring me back in, even if it was only for a week or two. And that way I got top money from him. I get a guarantee.
Yeah, but that actually, I was going to say something else, but that actually brings me to another point, is that you never stayed too long in any one territory, which tells me that you knew your value was partially shock value as well. So if you stayed too long in one place, people would get acclimatized, and it's the law of diminishing returns. So you were very clever in that way.
Yeah, you've answered the question.
Yeah. Well, what I was actually going to say was Dutch Mantel told me last week was no matter if it was Jerry Lawler in the main event or some other big main event, people were paying to see you over the main event, and people would have come to see you even if you weren't wrestling. That's how big of a draw you were the first time you got to Memphis.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fact.
How long was your initial run? How long was your initial run in Memphis?
I'll tell you what happened there is there was like a power struggle. Bill Dundee actually contacted me and brought me into the territory because he was doing the booking for him at the time. He was a booker and matchmaker, but he would have 6 months doing that, and then Jerry Lawler would have 6 months doing it. So my initial run there was, I actually got fired, even though I was earning more money than, I was drawing more than anybody there. But when Bill Dundee's 6 months came to an end and Jerry Lawler got in, he was like jealous of what I was doing, and he was bringing his own team in, and he wanted to replace people and everything like that. And I was one of the ones he replaced. But as it happens, he did me a favor because he actually put me in touch with Eddie Graham. So I went from there down to Tampa.
Before we go on to Florida, I'll ask a few more things about Memphis. And one thing is, Southern wrestling is different from Stampede, which is different from British. How was there any trouble adjusting your style to a Southern audience? And especially, was there any trouble not working the round system anymore and just doing one long match?
Oh, I mean, I'd sort of gotten over doing the rounds. That didn't bother me at all. But the thing is, I wasn't worried about whatever style I was put in the ring with, because I'd wrestled with all different kinds of styles. Like I told you, Sambo wrestlers, oil wrestlers, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu wrestlers, all different kinds of Oriental ones. So the thing is, I went in the ring and wrestled, and I did what I wanted to do. And if I wanted to give my opponent something like a bit of a speaking part to make the match more interesting, that was up to me. If he had an attitude problem, he'd get nothing.
I'll ask this next one. This is actually for you, Miss Linda. Is who beat up more fans in the Memphis area, Adrian or you?
I think it must have been me. They'd always have goes at me because I was outside the ring all the time. I'd get jumped by people, men or women, whatever it was. They'd all want to have a go at me.
I would purposely mistreat Linda myself, because I was that arrogant sort of thing that was like above her and everything like that. And I would be really unpleasant to Linda to try to give her a bit of sympathy with the crowd. So maybe they'd leave her alone, but they didn't. I mean, I walked out of the ring, Linda, I'd make her get on her hands and knees on the floor, and I'd step her on her back to get up on the apron. I'd pull her around and everything else. I'd hold a mirror like this. I'd be as unpleasant as I possibly could. And even in interviews, I'd say like, "Oh, Linda, her family's been servants of mine for years, in the Royal Force of being, like in the ancestral home and everything like that. Linda was like a servant, like personal servant and stable girl." As it happened, she actually taught Michael Caine to ride a horse for the film Nuru. She's a horse person.
How did that even come about?
What?
Teaching Michael Caine how to ride a horse.
I worked in riding stables in Roehampton, and he happened to to sort of call up for some riding lessons, because he told the manager I think he wanted to learn to ride for some movie or other, and I happened to be the one that took him out. I mean, he was a you could say he was a nobody then. I mean, I'd never heard
it was a movie Zulu actually made him.
Oh.
Well, Alfie and the what's his name? She taught Terence Stamp.
Yes, Terence Stamp came, because they seemed to be all friends. Him and I don't know who else. There was a couple of girls as well that came with them a couple of times after that. But I taught him to actually look like he could ride. You know, he wanted to sit there and look like he could sort of he'd been there for forever, sort of thing.
Straight back.
Yes.
Look around that.
Yeah.
Well, I'll also pose this to you, Miss Linda. Is can you come up with any of the hairy situations that you were involved in while you were out there managing Adrian, as far as fans coming in, attacking and whatnot?
Oh, damn.
Lots of times, really. I mean, even before I ever wrestled or did the valet thing, back in England, I'd watch his back sometimes coming out of the ring, because
Because they saw that she was with me.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we tried to go in separately in Britain, because she wrestled in Britain as Blackfoot Sue. I give her like a Red Indian gimmick and stuff like that. She was a good guy, I was a bad guy, so we'd usually go in separately. But like nosy people would see us sort of arriving together, and if they did that, she'd get into fights. She get into fights very often. I tell you what, though, she can fight. You wouldn't want to see.
We have to protect ourselves.
That is what I've heard from several people, and one of the people who I've heard that from is Jim Cornette. Now, people who watch my show know that Jim Cornette's my favourite subject in the world. But give me some Jim Cornette stories. You guys, two of the first people he managed, I believe.
He managed us, yeah.
Yeah, we were the original Cornette dynasty. He'd never been a manager before. He was our manager. And the other one was Jesse
Barr.
Jesse
Barr and Apocalypse. We were the original Cornette dynasty.
You've got to give us some funny Jim Cornette stories hanging around with Jim in the early days then.
Jim could eat.
You know, to begin with, he was a photographer. He used to take photographs. He used to take photographs of the guys and everything like that. And he'd sell them pictures like at a price where they could sell them around the arenas for a profit. That's how he got to be. That's how he got to be like sort of backstage and that sort of thing. And I think one night they said like, "Oh, you know, we're gonna have you for a manager and stuff like that." He was terrified, but then he got the flavor and everything like that. He turned out to be really good.
What did he bring to the table as far as you guys? Because obviously, Adrian, you've already got a second in Linda, so now you've got a second. So what did Jim bring to the mixture?
Well, I mean, the crowd really wanted to see him getting beaten up and what have you. But of course, we'd allow him to be in sort of harm's way to where somebody got hold of him and went like this. And that's when Linda would drop the thing on them. It was a great distraction, actually. Because like if a guy was beating up on me or something like that, Jim jumped up on the apron, and a guy grabbed hold of Jim and put him over the rope. While he was doing that, and to give either Linda or myself like the chance to Pearl Harbor him.
So who got attacked more then, Linda or Jim Cornette?
we shared it.
Yeah.
Just before I move on from Memphis entirely, I've got to ask one more thing, and this is more 84, 85, and the Poffos, Lanny Poffo, Macho Man Randy Savage, the ICW, I think it's ICW, shuts down, and then they are brought over to Memphis to feud with Lawler, and you're involved in there as well. Have you got any memories of Randy, Lanny, or just the genuinely bitter hatred that these two companies had towards each other, and then they start working together?
I don't know the exact story or anything like that, but there was like a rivalry between Randy's father, who was promoting shows and stuff like that. About he was promoting shows about the place. I think they had something to do with Nick Goulas. Jerry Jarrett left Nick Goulas and sort of made his own promotion and outdrew him and everything like that. It was like to do with business and stuff like that. I don't know like the whole story, but I do know that there were guns. There were actual guns sort of stuck up people's noses and everything like that back in that particular time.
Sorry.
People getting attacked in sort of car parks and stuff like that, but like most of that already. Most of that had already shit had already hit the fan more or less before I was there. But there was still a bit of it going on, and they were like rivals. But I wrestled for Poffo the same time as I was actually given it. You'd actually get a few days of Linda and myself to wrestle on his own shows in Missouri, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Missouri and a couple of other places. So I actually wrestled for his promotion a number of times with Jared's blessing.
As far as Randy Savage goes, in American wrestling at least, he's hailed as an all-time great. You wrestled with him. I don't know if he was your opponent or you wrestled with him. I can't remember if you tagged with him. But where would you rank Randy?
Randy was a great athlete. I think he played baseball for one of the top pro baseball teams. He was ambidextrous. He could sort of he could pitch with either hand. I don't know. I give my right hand to be ambidextrous. But he could look after himself. But he was not a wrestler.
But he was a great showman.
He was a good showman. He could fight. I mean, there's no. In actual fact, when I heard I was going to be wrestling with him first, Eddie Gilbert, hot stuff Eddie Gilbert, came into my dressing room. He said, you're going to be working with, he said, you're going to be doing a program with Randy Savage. I said, yeah. I said, I think I heard somebody saying that. He said, thank goodness for that. He said, they're putting you with him. He said, because they reckon that you're the only one in the territory, the only person in the territory that can handle him. I said, what do you mean? He says, off the wall. He said, the things he does, he spits. He get Coca-Cola off the people drinking and sort of throw it all over him and everything like that. He said, he's ruined like one of his gowns and all the rest of it. I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, right. At that time, because there'd been friction between the two promotions and everything like that, Randy Savage insisted in having his own dressing room. He wouldn't share dressing room with anybody else. I knew where he was, so I went in there, straight into his dressing room. I said, "Oi," I said, "They reckon we're doing a program together. We're going to be working with each other for a while." He said, "Yeah." I said, "Let's get one thing straight." I said, "You spit at me or throw Coca-Cola or anything like that over me, especially when I'm wearing any of my gowns." I said, "I'll rip your throat out and make you eat it." He said, "Oh, okay, like, yeah, I won't." He was off the wall, I'm telling you. But like I said, they figured I was the only one at the time. They could actually, in the territory, they could actually put him in his place if I wanted to.
Hmm.
And I tell you what, as far as wrestling was concerned, he could fight. I tell you what, like a regular person would want to mess with him. He would hurt you. But as far as wrestling was concerned, Linda could beat him.
I'm going to move on. I'm going to give you a little game now. So I know just in case there's a bit of repeating going on, Adrian has said he's a bit hard of hearing, so Linda's there to translate some things here and there. But I'm going to give you some sentences, some descriptors, and you tell me who you have worked with over the years that best fits that description. So I'll give you a few sentences, and you tell me the best name for it. And the first one is funniest person in the locker room. Any locker room you've ever been in.
The funniest person
in the locker room.
Brad Armstrong. Brad Armstrong could be really, really fun. He was a big Monty Python fan, and so were we. And whenever I saw him, I'd only have to look at him and I'd laugh. And he'd only have to look at me and he'd laugh. And we'd come up and go like, marching up and down the square, play the piano. And he'd come out with all different lines and stuff like that. Like from Monty Python. And I do the same thing, we just laugh and laugh and laugh. He was one of the nicest people that I've ever met. Never mind about in wrestling or anything like that. Another one of the nicest people I've ever met was Mick Foley. Mick Foley was one of the nicest people that I've ever met in my life.
Yeah, he spoke very highly of you in his book as well.
Very rarely heard him saying a bad thing about anybody.
Mm.
He was a really, really nice person. He actually came to my school I actually taught him some wrestling.
Mm.
But, he needed to learn to wrestle because at that time he was taking a lot of bumps and he was really absolutely crippling himself. Another nice person is Jake the Snake Roberts.
Really?
Yeah, but there's a lot of people in the business. I've got an awful lot of respect for. There's a lot of people in the business I really don't like.
The next one is last man standing at the bar.
Don't understand the question.
The man who can drink the most.
The last man standing
at the bar in a pub.
Who would be the last man standing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Me. I've been in a lot of them, and I tell you what. I know I am a great technical wrestler. If there's anything I can do better than wrestling, it's fight.
No, drinking.
Oh, drinking.
Yeah, in a pub.
Oh, without a doubt. Andrew the Giant.
Oh, there you go then.
Yeah, Andrew the Giant. And I tell you who else could put him away. I've never been so drunk as in my life as the night that I spent drinking with Billy Two Rivers. My God, he could put it away.
Because you mentioned Andre the Giant, have you got a fun first time meeting Andre story?
First time I ever met Andre, it wasn't Andre, he was wrestling as Jean Fair. Not 7'4", 7'5", or like whatever it is. He's actually 6'11". That's how tall he was. But he's got the biggest hands and feet I've ever seen. First time I met him was in St. Albans, just outside London. We're both on the same card. I'm sitting down next to the door, and Andre, or Jean Fair as he was then, was sitting opposite me. No, sorry, he was sitting next to the door and I was sitting opposite him. He was sitting right next to the door. So we're chatting away and everything like that. And he takes his shoes off, his walking out shoes, and he puts them down by the side of his seat. Just as he put his shoes down, Prince Kamali stepped into the ring. Now, Prince Kamali was what, 6'4", 6'5", big black guy with big hands, big feet. He stepped straight into Andre's shoes with his own walking shoes on. And he was kicking him about like herring boxes.
Did Andre ever wrestle in Britain before the WWF, of course?
Oh yeah, of course he did. The Shan Fair.
Hmm.
Yeah, he was a good friend of mine over there.
What years did he wrestle in England?
It's when I knew you first, actually. So that would have been 69, 70, something like that.
How come he didn't stay? Because, wherever he went, he was a huge draw. So why did he leave France and UK so quickly for North America? Just more money?
More money.
Yep, sounds about right to me. I'll give you a few more then. The biggest bully
in professional wrestling?
Yeah.
Les Kellett.
I'll give you another one then. The smelliest... Oh, sorry.
The biggest bully actually would have been Bert Azarati. Bert Azarati would hurt you. He wanted blood and he'd get it the hard way. He'd tie somebody up on the floor. He'd lean over, he talked like this because his nose was broken. He'd lean over him and go, boom, 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 right in their nose. And he'd go, blow, son, blow. He'd want him to go and blow the blood up in the air so they'd both be covered. But Les Kellett was a bully, and I burst his bubble for him. He was a hard man. I've never met anybody with a pain threshold like he's got.
How did you burst his bubble?
I burst his bubble because he had hands. He had hands like miniature Andre bleeding hands. His hands are like a bleeding bunch of bananas. He'd get you in positions and stuff like that, and he would really hurt you. I mean, he would damage you. But one thing he did, he'd come into watch him, and he'd slap his opponent in his face. And I've rarely been punched as hard as he could slap. But anyway, one night he took my gown and put it on and started sort of flopping around the ring, and every now and then he picked it up and threw it out, and he wanted me the next time. That was in Cambridge. I wrestled him in Oxford the very next night, and he tried to get my gown again. I wouldn't give it him. Let me try your gown on. I said, no. He said, let me try your gown on. I started growling and everything like that. Everybody was terrified of him. And he'd go in the ring and do whatever he wanted to do with anybody he was wrestling with. I said, no. And I said to him, I bought that gown for me, not for you. So piss off. He started growling, and I knew he was going to get nasty. So he came in. The first thing he tried to do is slap. The people used to stand there and let him do it. I blocked him. When he brought him from the backyard and everything like that, you'd have to be blind or stupid to actually catch one if he didn't want to. I blocked him. Tried to do it again, I just moved out of the way, get air and everything like that. Now, I had the advantage on my side because I was a bad guy. People wanted to see me getting slapped and getting hurt. He was a good guy. He had to prove himself. I don't have to prove myself. People are going to boo me anyway, whatever I do. So I just kept out of his way. He tried to slap me, I'd move. I wouldn't do it. So then he come pulling in and grabbed hold of me, right? Tried to pull me off my feet. He can't do it. It takes a hell of a man to pull me off my feet. And he wasn't a hell of a man. He was a prick. He started growling. Growling all over the place. And sort of tugging and pulling on me. And I started singing to him. Who's afraid of the big bad wolf, the big bad wolf, the big bad wolf? Who's afraid of the big bad wolf? And he started laughing then, like they tried to get out of it that way. And sit. I wouldn't trust him the rest of the thing. And I told people, I said to the promoter, put me on with him. Whoa, Quickland.
You okay?
Yeah, I got a thing coming up to sort of stop the.
Oh, okay. So you're still recording okay with me?
He would only hurt you if you allowed him to put you in a position. I wouldn't allow it to happen.
Yeah.
And I said to promoters, you put me on with him anymore, that's what you're going to get. I'm not playing the game. I'm not putting myself in his position. He was inhumanly high pain threshold. There's a story where a hog bit him on the hand. His hand swelled up like a bloody balloon. And he went to the arena to wrestle that night, and he told the people the story, like bloody hog bit me. Look at this. His hand looked like a boxing glove. They're so swollen. And his opponent said to him, Les, you can't go in the ring and wrestle like that. And he used to talk like this. No, I don't think I think you're right. I think you're right there. We should give it all less because he wanted the attention. He wanted the attention of everybody in the dressing room. I think you're right. What is Leslie going to do? You could talk like that, like, what is Leslie going to do about it? I think the best thing for Leslie to do is to put my hand down there, and there's all this pus and everything like that in my hand. You stamp on it, get all the pus out. Oh, Les, I can't. Put it this way. You said yourself, I can't go in the ring and wrestle like that. So we got to do something about it. Now, if you don't stamp on my hand and get the pus out, I won't be able to go in the ring and wrestle. So if you don't do it, I'm going to stamp on your head. So the guy'd be there stamping on his hand, and of course all the wrestlers are there just like for attention. He's got everybody's attention. What a hard man he is. So his blood and pus everywhere he goes in the ring and wrestles. Same thing happened. A pile of wrestlers were in the ring for in a training thing that one of the promoters had. They were moving something and a girder fell down on Les's foot. He had big boots on, but there was blood welling through the boots. And they said, "Oh, Les, like they're the wrestlers saying, like, let's get your boot up." No. We said we do a job for the promoter. We tidy it up. We're going to do that. Let's move this steel girder that fell on my foot first. We'll see to it after. He worked all day there like that. When they finally took it off him, they had to cut it off. They had to actually cut the boot off because of all the congealed blood and everything like that inside.
So, yeah.
That is the way it was. There was a story where some big farmer chased Jumping Jim Hussey into the dressing room and was going to beat him up. This big farmer would have killed Jumping Jim. He ran in there and everything like that. And when he did, when he came in there, Les Kellett got him in a headlock, the farmer, and it was winter time. It was like a big brazier there, like a coke thing. He actually held the farmer's head over the stove. All the hair and everything like that was sizzling off this guy's head. His face was all coming up in blisters. Les Kellett's arm all came up in blisters, but he still held him there. And when he got him up, he threw him through the window, smashed the window. And like I said, it was ice cold, all the wind was blowing in. And the other wrestlers saying, "Oh, thanks for that, Les. You know what I mean? Cheers." But that is the way he was.
He sounds like a scary man, Les Kellett.
No, he didn't like me. He didn't like me at all. Even being on the same card as him, he wanted to be the star. We were both now working for independent promoters. Just Swindon, something like that. Can't remember exactly where it was. It was a show down south. But by then, he used to drink a lot as well. And whenever he'd had a couple of drinks, he used to make him nasty. Anyway, I came in there. I wanted to pee, so I run into the thing. He was already in there. He was already in there having a pee. I said, "How are you doing, Les?" And I like touched him on the shoulder. He spun round. If that punch had caught me, it knocked my bloody head off. So I pushed him back, like to where he was having a piss. Got his head down and charged at me. I stepped to one side, redirected him, and he went right into the door, the toilet door that I just closed. Bounced off that, run at me again. I redirected him this time and threw him as hard as I could into the shower, which was next to it. He went in there head first, blood all over the place. I looked at him, I thought to myself, "You pathetic bastard. I could have gone in there and just stomped on him until he was dead." He could be very nasty, very spiteful, he would hurt you and everything like that. But if it actually came to a fight,
yeah, he was ill prepared.
I could fight. I've always said, doesn't matter how you win as long as you cheat.
We've maybe got a couple more questions, then we're coming up to the end of the interview. So I'll ask the main ones that everybody who's watching or people who've asked me in their droves to ask you. And one of the big ones is, and a lot of people did ask me to ask you this: was there any serious overtures by Vince McMahon to bring you into the WWF at any time?
Yes, but he wanted me as a manager. Didn't want me as a wrestler, and I know why. I would have showed up if I'd wrestled with any of his so-called stars at the time. I would have showed him up. But he wanted me as a manager, but he was paying super money. So, yeah, fair enough. Why not?
Mm.
And he said, I've got a couple of British wrestlers I'm bringing over as a tag team. I want you to be their manager and to talk for them and everything like that as well. Because like being British, they're not used to talking and what have you. He said, you make a super manager for them. The British tag team is going to be called the British Skinheads. And they're going to be an over-the-top neo-Nazi tag team. I said, forget it. Forget it. I'm good at anything I've set my mind to. If I'd said, okay, I'll do that, I'm proud of my legacy. I'm proud of what I've done in this business. Very proud. For a little guy that was too small to be a wrestler. You know, what would I be remembered as now? I know if I did it, if I'd been stupid enough to do it, I'd have been good at doing it. What would I be remembered as now?
Who were the two wrestlers that he was going to bring in to be the skinheads? Do you remember their names?
I think it was Johnny South and somebody else. I can't remember exactly who they were now. It would have been a sensation, but not for me, mate. Not for me. I'm not a racist. Never been a racist. I'm glad there's all different kinds of people in the world, all different colours, all different nationalities. Just the same. I mean, I'm happy that there's Red Indians, Javaros, headhunters in Borneo, and all the rest of it. Black, white, yellow, whatever they are, I'm sort of happy just the same as I'm happy that there's lots of different animals in the world. Makes the world so much more interesting. I'm not a racist, never have been. I believe in being polite. I'll be polite to anybody who's polite to me. If you're not, then I'll be impolite, whatever color you are.
Did you feel that Vince McMahon? I mean, I think he clearly did. He took your entire act and he ended up putting it on Adrian Adonis, and he became the adorable one. When did you sort of first get wind that gimmick infringement was happening? Basically,
Jimmy
Hart was his manager. He told me that was going to happen before it did. He told me, he said, I'm going to, what's the name? He said, we're going to nick your gimmick. I said, what do you mean? He said, write anything I said, like any outlandish stuff that I said, like I've got so many ways to hurt you. You know, I could kill a man. Eventually. You know, that like I got that from Mae West. But any sort of stuff that I came out with like that, he'd write them down. He said, we're going to use all these. And they did. But I knew they'd done it wrong. First time I watched it out of interest just to see what they did with it. But I knew straight away that they'd missed the point. I would act effeminate, but never, ever say I was gay. And if people actually ask me, you know, are you? I pretend it went over my head. But if they said it in a way that I could understand, oh, really? I'd say it like I'd say it in a way, I deny it, but in a way that made it sound, I'd say something like, oh, really, when anybody tries to infer in any way, shape, or form that I'm effeminate, it makes me want to scream. You know, you don't. When Elton John came out and said, I'm gay, like I'm coming out of the closet and all the rest, so what? They put you in a box, then that's it. They put you in a box, they know what you are. While there's mystery and contrast is something that's fascinating in this business. Contrast, from a point of view of, I go in the ring, there was a commentator in Texas said it best. Well, when I Adrian Street, he makes his entrance and everything like that, he comes out of that music, he looks like a French poodle. But then me, when Adrian Street gets in the ring and that bell goes, he changes from a French poodle into an American pit bull. Contrast. Suggest one thing, but give him something entirely different.
Adrian Adonis seemed to mostly keep to the same act he'd done before. He was just wearing different clothes. He didn't seem to fully throw himself into the character, obviously, like you did.
No, but I'll tell you how he did it wrong, and he did it wrong straight away. I watched it out of interest because I knew it was going to happen. I mean, Jimmy Hart said, like, oh, watch it like, he's going to do the thing. Because, like, I've come out of the closet. I've come right out of the closet. I am gay. Right. You put yourself in a box. He's gay. People talk about it for 5 minutes, but then the story's finished.
You've given them the payoff in the first act, basically.
Oh, he did it wrong. He did it wrong. Vince sent Rocco, what's his name?
Rico Constantine. He sent him over.
He actually sent him to me. Go to Adrian Street School. He said, tell him and get Adrian to teach you how to do the thing. It made no difference to me then. It's too good a gimmick to waste. So I decided to help the kid out. I told him what to do. I watched that out of interest. Absolutely got it wrong. I would domineer Linda and put in. They give him a girl valet, so he comes out and everything like that, like doing the what's his name. Vince has got script writers doing the story for him, and they've not got a bloody clue. They haven't got a clue. It was their version of the thing, not what I told him to do. So he comes out and everything like that, and instead of him, like the female he had with him, sort of doing everything for him, she spun round, went between his legs, came up and gave him a kiss. If Linda had done that to me when I was a heel, I would have swatted her. No way, you know what I mean?
Who did it best then? Was it Goldust? Aside from you, of course.
Hmm?
Who did the mysterious androgynous character best aside from you?
I didn't much like Goldust's version. To me, it was a bit too crude with all this stuff that he used to do. Funny thing is, first time I saw TV and everything like that, just happened to turn it on and saw Goldust making his entrance with that long blonde wig. I looked twice because for a minute I thought it was an old film of me. You know, what the hell is that like? You know, No, I'd say my nearest rival would be for me, Gorgeous George. But even he wasn't a wrestler. I am.
I will. We've gone a little over the hour, and I've darkened your door enough. I've taken up a lot of your time, and I thank you so much for spending so much time with me. And it's been, do you know what? And I'll even show you this. I do this occasionally, but I had 5 pages of questions to ask, and we didn't even get through half of them. But as I always say, I'll get to the plugs in a sec. I'll get to the plugs. Is better to over prepare, and that's the way. And also, you guys, I don't suppose you've got anything you'd like to plug for us, have you?
What's that?
Yeah,
Have you got anything you'd like to plug?
there you go.
Where's the record?
It's behind me.
So you've actually got vinyls pressed and everything.
Yeah.
I designed that, and that's the back. That's all the different titles. But that's on CD
Mm-hmm.
or vinyl. You can get it off eBay or by messaging me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the same.
That is the best documentary that you'll ever get on us. Lots of big stars on that. Randy Savage is on that. Jackie Pollard Jr. is on it.
And let's see the action figure as well.
And that's the back.
Action figure.
Which one?
This one.
Okay. When did that get made?
A couple of years ago. Seller Toys. Seller Toys is bringing out another one that's going to be much like that.
There we go.
It's coming with a gown and everything. That's Seller Toys.
Cellar Toys.
Cellar Toys, yeah. And later on, they're going to bring out a Miss Linda action figure as well.
That's cool. So where do you get these then? Is it you actually sell through eBay, don't you? Like through an eBay shop?
Yeah, if you look on eBay
Or message Adrian.
or message me on Facebook Manager.
And how much?
Messenger, yeah.
And let's say if a young man like me wanted to buy one and put it on the wall behind me, how much would that cost me?
That would cost you £20 plus shipping.
Oh, forgot. I thought you were going to say free then. Oh, dearie. I was angling for a free one. Signed?
Yeah, right. Because people seem to think I get them for nothing. This is something that used to get off wrestlers. You know, we used to make all their gear. We had a business where we'd make all the gear, and if somebody that I vaguely knew, Adrian, I wanted a gown like I wanted a pair of tights like this. I want a pair of tights like that. I noticed you got them in your catalog, and they cost £100, like $100. You know, we've been friends and everything like that, like down the road together and everything like that. So how much for me? I said, oh, well, if you put it like that, I mean, normally I charge £100, like $100. Why don't you send me 120? You know, research. Why is it got to? You know, it doesn't matter whether they're friends or not. The fabric costs us a certain amount of money. I do the designing and cutting out. Linda put them together. That takes a certain amount of time. Just because you're a friend of mine, I don't get the fabric cheaper or spend less time doing it. These cost me a lot of money, actually, and I'm interested in getting my money back.
So for everybody thinking about buying an action figure, it's £20 for you. For me, it's £30 now because I asked for it cheaper. But for now, I will thank you both. Adrian, Linda, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for joining me as well. Oh,
I'll give you a bit cheaper, but
oh, don't worry, I can afford it. I'll pay 20.
We don't do freebies because I don't get them.
I'll pay 20. Don't worry, I can afford it. I'm good for it. But for now, thank you both of you guys, and thank you very much for joining as well. And you know what? I got through less than half the questions I wrote, so there's a part 2 in it somewhere if you guys want. But for now, thank you very much, and thank you guys as well.
And we won't even charge you 40 minutes overtime.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.